Page 1003. Page 1004. Page 1005. Page 1006. Page 1007. Senator Durufase.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Durufase, representing North Senatorial District. I move that Senate do approve the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 6 December 2016. I do move.
Very well, thank you. Senator David Umoru. Senator David Umoru. Can you second the motion?
Where is it? Thank you, Mr. President. My name is David Umaru. I represent Niger East Senatorial District. I rise to support the motion, to second the motion for the approval of the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, the 6th December 2016. I hereby second.
Very well, thank you. Distinguished colleagues, those in support that the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, the 6th day of December 2016 be now approved, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Announcements. We have a letter from Senator Umaru Ibrahim Kurfi, the Turakin Kurfi, Senator representing Kano Central Senatorial District and Vice Chairman of the Committee on Finance. Wedding Fatia, notification and invitation. With much gratitude to Allah, I'm pleased to announce and invite you to the wedding Fatia of my sons, Engineer Aliyu Umar Kurfi and Architect Abubakar Umar Kurfi, which are scheduled as follows. 1. Engineer Aliyu Umar Kurfi, who wears Aisha, the daughter of His Excellency Saidu Barda, former governor of Katsina State. This will take place on Saturday, 17 December 2016, at Late Maman Barda's Mosque near Korau Cinema, Katsina, at 1 p.m. The second wedding between Architect Abubakar Umar Kurfi and Hafsat, the daughter of His Royal Highness Mohammed Sanusi II, Emir of Kano, will take place on Friday, 23rd of December 2016 at MS Palace, Kano, at 1 p.m. My family and I will be delighted and honored by your presence. However, in the event that you are unable to attend, your prayers for a blessed and successful marriage is highly appreciated. Please accept the assurance of my highest esteem and regard. Signed, Senator Umar Ibrahim Kurfi. Further announcement. This is from Senator Omo Agege. Humble reminder on the burial ceremonies of our father, the Honorable Chief Justice James Omo Agege, OFR. I write on behalf of my family to humbly remind Your Excellency and distinguished colleagues of our family's invitation for the burial ceremonies of our patriarch, the Honorable Justice James Omo Agege, OFR, holding this weekend, that is on Friday the 9th and Saturday the 10th December 2016, at Oromuru, Orogun, in Ugeri North Local Government Area of Delta State. For convenience, the burial organizing committee has reserved 2 aircrafts to take distinguished senators to Delta State for the ceremonies and return them. The planes depart Abuja to Osubi Airport in Warri by 10:30 a.m. on Saturday, the 10th December 2016, and return to Abuja by 4 p.m. same day. Our family and the Yoruba nation look forward to the esteemed presence of Your Excellency and our distinguished colleagues during the burial ceremonies on Saturday, 10 December 2016, as we bid our noble jurist father final farewell. May the good Lord abide with you in His grace and kindness as always. Yours sincerely, Senator Ovie Omo Agege. And finally, this is from the Deputy Senate President. The Senate Committee on the Review of the 1999 Constitution will meet today, Wednesday, 7th October 2016, immediately after plenary at Senate Meeting Room 204, Senate Building. Signed, Senator Ike Ekweremadu. State Leader. Point of order, Senator Ogba.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator Obin Ogba. I represent the good people of Ebonyi Central Senatorial Zone, Ebonyi State. Mr. President, I rise through order 42 and 52. May I have your permission to read? Mr. President, may I have your permission to read, Mr. President?
Go ahead. Put on your microphone.
Before the day's sitting, and the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. And Mr. President, the 52 says the notice shall not be dispensed with in the case of the motion or in respect of any other proceedings for which notice is required, except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the General Assembly of the Senators present. Mr. President.
But what is it all about? A microphone again.
Mr. President, it is in respect of our Super Falcon that just won the 8th edition of 10th edition, but 8 times African champions. And Mr. President, it is not for you to know that as I'm talking to you now, these our girls are stranded. They can't even go home. So there's need for us to discuss it and take a position on it.
Okay, distinguished colleagues, you mentioned this earlier to me, but in accordance with our rules, I'll still put the question if it's your desire. We can quickly take the motion. Those in support that this motion be taken immediately, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Maybe now have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The Senate notes with gladness the impressive performance of the Super Falcon of Nigeria in just concluded 10th edition of African Women Championship in Cameroon, hence successfully defending the trophy won 2 years ago. The Senate notes also with delight the tenacity of spirit, patriotic zeal, as well as unity and team spirit displayed by players, coaching crew, and entire team management despite challenges of non-payment of allowances and bonuses. The Senate further notes that this victory makes the Super Falcon 8 times winner of the African Women's Championship, the most successful African team in history. Yes, they have been better even than the Egyptian men national team that have won the men's continental championship 7 times. The Senate is aware that the Super Falcons of Nigeria participated in the first ever Women's World Cup in China, and since then have not missed any World Cup tournament, making the one of the 7 teams to achieve the feat. The others are the United States of America, Japan, Brazil, Norway, Sweden, and Germany. The Senate recalled that the Super Falcons of Nigeria has won the 10th edition of African Women's Cup of Nations after beating Cameroon 1-0 in Yaoundé. in the presence of the country's president and the CAF president who hails from Cameroon, one who were among the capacity crowd at the stadium to cheer their country team to victory. Nigeria, by this victory, has now won the African Women's Cup title for a record 8 times. The Senate stated that these heroines are being owed camp allowances, match bonuses, as well as I speak, and report how it that members of the squad in Abuja on Monday threatened to occupy the National Assembly if the allowances and bonuses were not paid. It is heartened that our sportsmen and women, after giving us true stress and rigor associated with sports to make us proud and eventually won the biggest prize on the continent, are not only owed but are not treated unfairly. Mindful of the uniform powers of football in Nigeria and the role of football in defining the nation's international image, we cannot fold our hands and watch the game being treated in this manner. The Senate accordingly resolved to: 1. Mr. President, the Senate salutes the Super Falcons for the achievement, especially their very hard-fought victory over strong opponents, the Cameroonians. 2. Urge the federal government and Nigerian Football Federation to, as a matter of priority, pay outstanding allowances of the Super Falcons and other Nigerian teams being owed. And 3. Urge the Ministry of Sports and Youth Development and other relevant agencies to be proactive on issues pertaining to allowances of sports, men and women, so as not to discourage them from giving their best to the service of their fatherland. Mr. President, let me also inform these hallowed chambers that the match the Super Eagles played last month or earlier this month, in Akwa Ibom, that all the players that came from outside the country to play this game, no kobo has been given to them. The promise continues to be that they should go very soon, they will give them the money. And I remember vividly that I personally discussed with the Honorable Minister for Finance. He told us that in the office of the Mr. President that this money has been released. They have approved the money. But since that time till now, no one kobo has been paid to this team. So a country like Nigeria, how can we live in this form when it comes to sports? So, distinguished colleagues, this is what I want all of you to support this my motion so that we can see a way out of this mess. Thank you, Mr. President.
Right. Ben Bruce.
Yes.
Immediately after, I'll bring it so that you see.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Ben Murray Bruce, representing Bayelsa East. In supporting this motion, let me state that what is happening to our Super Falcons is no different from what happens all the time. We are a nation that builds stadiums but play no football matches in them. We are a nation that spends $250 million buy equipment for NTA for the All Africa Games, but after the event, we don't use the equipment. It seems like when it comes to awarding contracts to build facilities, we are experts at them. I remember telling President Obasanjo at the time there was no need to build the stadium in Abuja, that the All Africa Games could have been held in Lagos like they did in 1972. Now the stadium is built. When El Rufai was FCT minister, he wanted to take it over. He said, how much does it cost to maintain? They told him JB was charging 2 billion naira every year just for maintenance. He said, please, I don't want it anymore. The problem we have right now is this. We care about structures, we don't care about people. And this applies to every government since 1960. It is a disgrace what is happening to our girls. It is a disgrace what happens to our football players, our boxers, our tennis players, our swimmers, and all athletes representing Nigeria. We must take a position. We either care about human beings or we care about bricks and mortar. We either care about people or we care about giving out contracts. The talent for Nigeria to be great is the people we have in this country. But the governments of Nigeria do not care about human beings. They only care about giving out contracts. Now we have won the competition. Something as simple as paying wages to our young ladies who are the heroes of our time is not being paid because there are no contracts to be awarded. The entire sports division must be overhauled. And only people with intelligence, commitment, compassion, and a drive to make Nigerians great should be appointed to the Ministry of Sports. And government should understand, this is serious business. Every time I see a kid selling paper on the streets running, you see an area boy, but I see a 100 meters world champion. Because that is how they are made. All the kids in America who are now heroes all came from the ghetto. Nobody in this chamber, none of our children will be world champions because they are too rich. Only the children of the rich, the poor, listen, only the children of the poor will go into sports. Listen, the children of the rich will go into science and technology. They will not go into sports. So what we have done is to deprive the children of the poor a chance to make a living and to be successful. And this is very, very important. Whether you are Dick Tiger, Hogan Bassi, any world champion we ever had, they will not be children of the rich. The children of the poor, pay attention, I'll flog some people here now. The children of the poor are the ones who are depriving a chance to make a living and to be successful. I urge all my noisy colleagues to please support this motion and get the government to pay the allowances of these beautiful children so that we can be great again. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll take further contribution, but let me just correct the impression that the children of senators don't get you sports. Chukwumerije's son, he won the Olympic medal and we celebrated him here. The son of Senator Ndoba is playing in Europe, in a league in Europe, and I'm sure there are other outstanding sportsmen and women, you know, whose fathers are here and then maybe in other places. Senator Sabi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, Senator Aliu Sabi Abdullahi Niger North. I want to lend my voice to this very important issue. And I think the last speaker, I'm a very good friend. I'm not sure the kind of sport you are conversant is what we are talking about here. You know, you are a man who is into the fashionista kind of sport. So this is sports that involves everybody. And I don't.
Can you address the chair, please?
All right, just on a lighter note, Mr. President, this particular issue, honestly, is embarrassing. Just this morning, one of the players was already expressing regret. I think Odega, expressing regret that if not for the fact that she has deeply played international for Nigeria, she would have switched her nationality to play for another country. This is a bad signal. And I think the point I want to add here is, while the intention of government is very clear, it is becoming increasingly clear also that those who are saddled with the responsibility of helping government to translate these very laudable policy intentions into concrete actions on the ground are getting it wrong and are doing so with reckless abandon and arrogance. I think, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it is time for us to rethink sports in Nigeria. Not just this particular, sport, that is football. Sports generally. We are talking about diversifying the Nigerian economy. Sports today is a multi-billion industry. Nigerians in abundance, we have talents in abundance in almost every kind of sport you are thinking about. And I think when we begin to treat
our young boys and girls, or even men who play this sport, or women who play this sport, I think we are sending the wrong signal, and it is very, very apt that we should use this particular opportunity as a milestone or a turning point to definitely intervene in bringing a lasting and permanent solution to all of this nonsense where our sportsmen come back and they are just treated as if they are nothing. I have played sports, and I know the blood of a sportsman is full of patriotism. The blood of a sportsman is full of selflessness. But that doesn't mean that blood must be stopped until the sportsman can no longer live. It is unfortunate. We should condemn it in its totality. And indeed, in coming to make our prayers, there is need for us to actually investigate what actually happened leading to this embarrassment. Because this is not the first time it has happened. It has happened before, and I think it is important we get to the root of it so that we can stop all of these things happening. I support this motion in total disregard.
Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. First, let me congratulate the Senate Committee Chairman on Sports, my dear brother, Senator Obinna, for the care. And of course, congratulate our young Falcons who have made our country very proud by emerging champions. The contribution I'd like to make, sir, is on the issue raised by my dear brother, Senator Ben Murray Bruce. It is not true that governments love giving out contracts for building of facilities. It is also a fact that without facilities, you cannot even produce champions. Because if they don't have places to train, then the issue of training in Ajegule on the street, you cannot go and compete with Brazilians. So we should combine the two. We should train the children, and at the same time, we should also have facilities. But it is not true that government, I don't know where he is.
Address the chair. Just stop looking for Bruce. Microphone. Microphone.
Yeah, okay, thank you for the correction. Now, sir, it's not true that governments love giving out contracts instead of, being interested in human beings. There's a big difference between training of children and beauty pageantry. In beauty contests, you don't need facilities. You don't need to have in beauty contests, you don't need facilities. You don't need sports edifice. You don't need stadium. You don't need even a hall. You can do beauty contests even inside your parlor. So if it's very used to, if empowerment of children is through beauty pageantry, it should realize that sports requires facilities. And that is the point I want to make. It is not that I support what is happening in the area of sports, but I just want to bring to our notice that all over the world, sports has become a privatized matter. It is now a private sector driven thing. So I think we should say that, yes, this motion is good, but it's almost like watching our dirty dinner in the public. We really should employ the Senate Committee on Sports to go and discuss this issue privately with the Minister of Sports or Minister of Finance and then the Accountant General of the Federation and find a way. Because for me, since the entire world is watching us, if we are saying that we left our children stranded, we are not paying their allowances, and we are discussing it in chambers, it's not very good. So I would plead that instead of continuing to discuss, because we are the leaders, there's no way anything that they say, oh, government did not do this. We are part of government. We are the leaders. So this is actually an in-house issue that could be taken up through the Ministry of Finance, through the Accountant General's office, and then if there is need for some of us who are in the leadership to accompany the few members of the committee to go and ensure that things are strengthened, we'll do so. But I will plead that we just note this motion and congratulate the children and treat it as an in-house thing instead of further discussions. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, we'll take, since this concerns women, let's take Senator Tinubu and Senator Odo, and then we'll put the question. Senator Tinubu.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. My name is Senator Oluremi Tinubu, representing Lagos Central Senatorial District. I'm really glad, and also I have to commend the mover of the motion. He's really doing well, and I actually met him at the lounge in Lagos when he came to receive the female pride of the nation. So I'm quite in support of this motion, and also I'm also proud that as the chairman of the committee is gender sensitive, and for him to bring it to this Senate and all the men are contributing, I want to also commend you. We Nigerians have to realize that it is the women that have actually made us very proud as a country through the game of soccer in a while. So what is due to them, I believe, should be given. And they don't have to beg for it. And I believe we as a Senate should also honor them today. So I'm in support of it, and I also commend my colleagues for speaking up for us. And I pray that Nigerian men will be gender sensitive in a long time. Thank you so much, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, dear colleagues, my name is Stella Odua. I represent Anambra North. Mr. President, I would like to thank my brother who has been a mover of this motion for his being sensitive, like my colleague said. But Mr. President, it's really, we're just painting this to be palatable, but it's really most unfair. One of the ladies was telling us that she had to borrow money. She had to borrow money to participate in this particular event. Mr. President, women are naturally tenacious, and so they keep on going and going and going. But to be treated this way, it's not acceptable. I don't know why it happened, but it just doesn't make sense that it should happen. Not once, not twice. And these are people that have always gone and done us well. Mr. President, this is what I suggest as a way forward. I think this chairman should sit down with the ministry and benchmark how these activities should be henceforth. There should be a process. If we do not have a budget for matches, they shouldn't be allowed to go in the first place. If we cannot play because we cannot afford it, then we shouldn't play. But I think it's most unfair that we should send ladies out of this country, and they will come back with our cups only to be treated shabbily. It is not fair. It is not acceptable. We shouldn't be discussing it here. We need to do something about it. I so submit, Mr. President.
All right, thank you so much. Distinguished colleagues, let me apologize that most of you had indicated interest will not be able to contribute because we have a lot to do today. But I also take it that those who spoke on behalf of all of us. And in saying so, let me congratulate the girls for winning this trophy for a record 8 times. It's not a cheap achievement. So we are indeed very proud of all of them. And we must urge that nobody, none of the players should consider the option of quitting playing for Nigeria. These are some of the setbacks we suffer from time to time. It must be admitted that football is indeed, and sports generally, are things that unite us as a country. These are the things that give us a positive outlook all over the world. And therefore, we must do everything to encourage our sportsmen and women to continue to do their best and bring back glory to our land. And I believe that with this discussion today, that the federal government and indeed the NFF will do the needful and pay the necessary allowances to the girls and all other sportsmen and women that are being owed, so that they continue to strive to do us proud as a nation. We'll continue to encourage them as a Senate to ensure that what needs to be done for them, including budgetary provisions, will be addressed from time to time to ensure that they be at the top of their career, and then ensure that our country will continue to do well in sports. I recall a few weeks ago, I think the Minister of Sports did say that Nigeria had no business going to the World Cup. And I think that's a very regrettable statement. And that tells you the mindset of those who administer our sports. So this mindset must change. And I would like to call on the relevant committees to ensure that applying the oversight, that these matters are addressed as quickly as possible, so that our boys and girls will always be eager to do us proud in different sports. So having said this, distinguished colleagues, let me straight away go to the questions or the prayers, sorry. The first is to congratulate the Super Falcons for their achievements, especially their very hard-fought victory over strong opponents, the Cameroon. Those in support of the prayer one, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer two, urge the federal government and the NFF to, as a matter of priority, pay outstanding allowances of the Super Falcons and other Nigerian teams being owed. Those in support of this prayer, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3, urge the Ministry of Sports and Youth Development and other relevant agencies to be proactive on issues pertaining to allowances of sportsmen and women, so as not to discourage them from giving their best to the service of their fatherland. Those in support of this prayer, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senior Leader. Additional prayer, okay, Mr. Tayan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator Sam Anyanwu. I represent Imo East. Mr. President, considering what we have just discussed and from the submission of colleagues, I move that we add as additional prayer, mandated the Committee on Youth and Sports to have a holistic investigation on Federal Ministry of Youth and Sports and NFF to determine the process and the reason why these payments are not done. It's very, very important because it falls within the purview and the portfolio of the committee. It is important.
Jabril.
Well, Mr. President, while what is said is okay, well, sorry, my name is Barol Jibril Kanonof. While what he said is okay, and I support what he said, but I think it's still within the purview. It's still within the mandate of the committee to do that. Having seen that is a problem. So I think we don't need any speech.
So you're not seconding it? You're not seconding the additional prayer? You're opposing it? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Those in support of this additional prayer that the Committee on Sports should look into this matter, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Dino.
Mr. President, my very, very respected colleagues, my name is Dino Melaye. I represent Kogi West Senatorial District. Mr. President, I draw inspiration this morning from Order 43, and if I have the permission of Mr. President, I appeal to read.
Go ahead. Put on your mic.
By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make personal explanation, although there may be no question before the Senate. But no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when his leave to make it is sought. Mr. President, I rise this morning in pain that Wednesday after Wednesday, for over 9 months, Kogi State has not been represented in the Federal Executive Council meeting of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I raise this issue on this floor that after the demise of our late minister, Barrister Ocholi, and that matter was raised here and resolution reached. 2 months after raising that issue, Kogi State has been completely cut off from being represented in the Federal Executive Council. We have lost economic, social, and political goodwill associated with that office. Mr. President, we in Kogi are not appealing. Neither are we begging for a minister. It is a constitutional issue that every state of the Federation shall, the word shall is there, shall produce a minister. Mr. President, I'm particularly disturbed that if this continue, then automatically we have been ostracized from benefiting from the proceeds of taxpayers and our contribution to the national treasury. 9 months is too long a time to replace our late minister. So I want to bring this back to the attention of the Senate, that the Senate is the last bus stop of the Nigerian people. And the Kogi State people are calling this morning that you should use your capacity as the House of the people to make sure that our constitutional right of having a minister is being implemented. We have lost a lot. We don't want to lose anymore. And if this is not done, then we will have to take alternative measures. But we are here for the second time. We have the constitutional right to civil disobedience. Yes, Mr. President, my people are not happy. We are part and parcel of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That for 9 months, a minister cannot be appointed is very, very ridiculous and unacceptable to the people of Kogi State. Mr. President, I so submit.
Well, distinguished colleagues, he came under Order 43. It's not open to debate. But I must say that this is indeed a very serious matter. And it can happen to any state. So we have senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Whatever concerns one state must concern all of us. So I just want to, on this note, on behalf of the Senate, call on the federal government, especially Mr. President, to take immediate steps to appoint a minister from Kogi State. Looking at this provision of Section 1473 of the Constitution, it says that the President shall appoint at least one minister from each state who shall be an indigene of such state. So I think it's a violation of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for Kogi to continue to be absent at the Federal Executive Council, and I'm sure that the people of Kogi are not finding it funny. So this has to be addressed as quickly as possible. As far as we are concerned, this is unjust, it's inequitable, and we cannot continue on this note. Distinguished colleagues, I believe that any person or persons that are unjustly treated can never be interested in peace. So I urge that, on behalf of this Senate, that this matter be addressed as quickly as possible so that Kogi will have proper representation at the Federal Executive Council. So Senator Dido, we've noted their point. I'm sure that the appropriate thing will be done as soon as possible. Thank you. Senate Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. I don't want to say anything yet. Not yet. The first business of the day is presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Dino Melaye on the Federal University of Agriculture, Kaba, Establishment, etc. Bill 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University of Agriculture, Kaba, Establishment, etc. Bill 2016, SB 402, first reading.
Dear colleagues, Federal University of Agriculture, Kaba, Establishment, etc. Bill 2016, first reading taken. Senate Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is still presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator David Umuru on the revised laws of the Federation Bill 2016. Mr. President, you may still wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, revised laws of the Federation Bill 2016, SB 391, first reading.
Dear colleagues, revised laws of the Federation Bill 2016, SB 391, first reading taken. Senate Leader.
Thank you. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is still presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Babaka Kabashir Garbai on the Nigerian Security System Surveillance Regulatory Commission Establishment, etc. Bill 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Nigerian Security System Surveillance Regulatory Commission Establishment, etc. Bill 2016, SB 401, first reading.
Dear colleagues, Nigerian Security System Surveillance Regulatory Commission Establishment, etc. Bill 2016, first reading taken. Senate Leader.
The fourth business of the day is the presentation of the Conference Committee report on the Defense Space Agency Establishment, etc. Bill 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Robert Boniface, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Professor Robert Boniface.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Senator Robert Ajayi Boniface, representing Ondo. I rise to move that the Senate do receive the Conference Committee report on the Defense Space Agency Establishment, etc. Bill 2016, as so moved.
Senator Bukaraba, can you be a good neighbor and second his motion?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise to second the motion put forward by Professor Robert Boniface that the Senate do receive the Conference Committee report on the Defense Space Agency Establishment, so as I can.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, those in support that the Senate do now receive this report, say aye. Against say nay. The ayes have it. We proceed to lay the report, please. Very well, thank you. Senate Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. The first order of the day is the presentation and consideration of conference report on the environment of funds appropriated for special intervention, as recurrent and special intervention capital for the funding of critical, recurrent and capital items. Distinguished colleagues, and Mr. President, you recall that the Senate and the House passed slightly different versions of the environment of funds appropriated for special intervention, recurrent and special intervention capital for funding of critical recurrent capital items. The conference committee of both houses met and harmonized the differences in accordance with the Standing Order 88. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Sonny Oboji, the Vice Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive and consider the conference report of the harmonized conference report, including maybe his environment to APC. I so move.
Senator Sonny Oboji.
Yes, it's going to come back. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Sonny Oboji. I rise to move that this distinguished Senate do receive the report of the Conference Committee and receive and consider the report of the Conference Committee on the request for development of funds in the 2016 Appropriations Act. The Senate will recall that the Executive forwarded a environment request on the 26th Appropriation Act to the National Assembly for the execution of critical, recurrent, and capital items. The Senate considered and approved the request on Tuesday, 29th of September 2016, while the House of Representatives did the same on Wednesday, the 23rd of November 2016. However, there are differences in what is approved in the Senate and in the House, and thus the need for a conference committee to look at the areas of differences and agree. Membership of this conference committee were from the Senate, Senator Mohammed Danjuma Goje, Chairman, Senator Sonny Oboji, Senator Jubril Barrow, Senator Mohammed Hassan, Senator Albert Akpan, and Senator Rafiu Ibrahim. From the House, the conferees were Honorable Femi Gbadabiamila, who was Chairman, Honorable Mustafa Bala Dawaki, Honorable Chukwuka Wilfred Onyema, Honorable Buba Jibril, and Honorable Babangida Ibrahim. The Senate, the areas of differences that we had were that the Senate approved a total sum of 213 billion 821 million 671,494, while the House approved sum was 208 billion 821 million 671,494. The Senate also approved the sum of 44 billion 208 million 367,476 for the special intervention capital, while the House approved the sum of 39 billion 208 million 367,476 for special intervention capital. Furthermore, the Senate provided a sum of 5 billion for the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing, SDG Housing, while the House did not. The committee also observed that the name Presidential Initiative for the Northeast, abbreviated PINE, for which 1,500 million naira was provided, no longer exists. After deliberations, the conference recommended as follows. The committee deliberated on the areas of differences and adopted the Senate version, and accordingly recommends that the sum of 5 billion for the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing, SDG Housing, be adopted. 2, the committee also recommends that the sum of 1,500 million naira provided for as Presidential Initiative for the Northeast, alias PINE, be allocated to the National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons, which perform similar functions. And our conclusion, therefore, is that on behalf of the committee, members of the committee, we shall be thankful that the leadership for the opportunity to process this environment request, and it was signed by the chairman,
on both sides and the clerk, and members of the committee also signed accordingly, minus the leader. He didn't hear well.
All right, except that I noticed you did not sign the report yourself.
Mr. President, I totally align myself with everything that is done in this report. My signature was inadvertently absent because I was out of the country when they signed this document.
Okay, Senate Leader.
Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, having gone through this report now, I have a very serious observation to make. The allocation of 1.5 billion for PINE, that is the Presidential Initiative for Northeast, is a dedicated sum for Northeast, knowing fully the issue of insurgents that have bedeviled the committee to address this issue. Now, in order to bring the three committees or organs of government in order to achieve one desired objective, it was the reason why the Presidential Committee for the Northeast was established by the President, and the Victim Support Fund, Safe School Initiative, and PINE was subsumed into the Presidential Committee for the Northeast with a clear mandate of addressing the challenges and coordinating the activities of the problems that bedeviled the Northeast. Now, if you take that money and give it to National Committee on Refugees, it means it becomes a wider sum that will be used anyhow. I think the Presidential Committee for the Northeast is there, and clearly the presidential orders specifies that that money, all monies accrued or that is in account of those three agencies will now be handed over to the Presidential Committee on Northeast.
Senator Barrow Jibrin.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Barrow Jibrin. I represent Kano North. I'm a member of the conference committee. Well, I quite understand the worries of our dear leader. But what gave rise to this change was because we observed that PINE has been, is no longer in existence. And so this money was taken to an entity that is in existence, but still the money is going to be used for the purpose it was proposed for. And there was a caveat that the National Assembly will make sure that the implementation is properly carried out. So I think the leader should be part of the team that will ensure that these proposal, that the money is going to be spent in respect to is really done the way it should. So the leader should also be part of the team to really see to the implementation of the proposal.
Finally, Senator Wakil.
Your Excellencies, distinguished senators, I want to align myself with the Senate leader. PINE is in existence, sir. There is a director in charge of the office of PINE in the office of the Secretary to the government. As I'm speaking right now, he is in hearing room 1 to come and defend certain actions taken by PINE on the humanitarian crisis in the Northeast. So let it go into the records. PINE has not been abolished. You may even recall that it has been rejuvenated with General Njuma as the chairman of the Presidential Initiative. By the time you take it to the National Refugee Commission, it has become free for all within the Nigerian state. And if you are addressing the Northeast, it should go to the specific so that everybody knows it goes to the Northeast Initiative. Thank you, sir.
All right, well, distinguished colleagues, Senior Leader, I just want to appeal for your understanding because we're already running late with this environment. Because if we reject it here now, it means they're going to go back to the House, and it's going to set a lot of things back. So what I would like to suggest, therefore, let me finish, is that if we pass this, maybe the two committees can address it through a corrigendum, if it becomes absolutely necessary. But at this stage, if we don't pass this in today, I'm worried when it will be passed, given that they have to go back to the House.
Sir, I have no objection because I know the implication and the procedure. But I want this Senate to note this. And if there is the necessity to have the conjundium as you suggested, so be it. But let me say clearly that the PCNI, this amount that is budgeted and is vowed, was because of the requirement by the PCNI, and even procurement process anticipatory have started to procure humanitarian items, especially food, for the Northeast. Now, if this goes like that, the loan process of changing that will now start, and the people are suffering there. So it's very important, sir, because I know what is happening there. And that pine, as it says, it's not true that the pine have been disbanded, because they are rounding up. They have not even handed over yet. And remember that this Senate did set up a committee that is looking at the activities of pine. So it's not like pine is not existing. And it was not created by the law of the National Assembly, but by the privileges attached to the president to create committees to execute certain things. Once you take this money and give it to Refugees Commission, it becomes another thing entirely.
Okay, we've noted the point. So the Committee on Appropriation, I'm sure you've taken note as well. And I'm surprised because the chairman of this committee is from the Northeast. He should have been conversant with this. The minority leader.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. Just a clarification. While I just align myself with what the leader of the Senate has spoken, and they need to take a second look at this particular environment so that the pine will not be disabled in terms of its activities. I'd like to say that the recommendation is a little bit glossy on the issue of the capital expenses, because here the Senate had 213 billion, and what the House had was about 39 billion, and the recommendation did not tell us how they resolved that issue, because the difference seems very high.
No, they said they adopted the Senate version of the sum, the difference. Yes, when you're going for in conferencing, you either take the Senate or the House version. There's no middle course. I don't know the figure, but they took the Senate version. That is okay. You can apply it accordingly. Distinguished colleagues, I believe that leader have accepted my plea on this matter, and that the appropriation committee will take the appropriate steps to address his fears. So on this note, let me put the question. Those in favor that the Senate do approve the conference committee report on environment of funds appropriated for special intervention, recurrent, and special intervention capital for funding of critical, recurrent, and capital items, say aye. Those against, say nay. Amendment?
Yes, but you should put the question with that. You put the question with that.
No, leader, don't worry. I will deal with it. No, if people they have to go back to the House and put the same question. Those in favor that Senate do approve the conference committee report on environment of funds appropriated for special intervention recurrent and special intervention capital for funding of critical, recurrent, and capital items, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, very distinguished colleagues. I appreciate your kindness in approving the presidential request for this environment. And I do believe that this money will be released immediately to address some of the challenges that it seeks to address, especially the issue of the amnesty program, the IDPs, the National Youth Service Corps, as well as the Public Complaint Commission shortfall. So once more, I want to thank you for your patriotism. Senior leader.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. The second order of the day is still consideration of the report of the Committee on Culture and Tourism on the 2016 budget of the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, you recall that the report was laid yesterday, was laid on 23rd November 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Matthew Origide to move the motion for the Senate to consider and approve the report.
Senator Matthew Origide.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Matthew Origide. I represent Edo South Senatorial District in Edo State. Mr. President, I stand to move that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Culture and Tourism on the 2016 budget of the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation, NTDC. I so move.
All right, thank you. Senator Jang, can you second the motion?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm Jonah David Jang, Senator representing Plateau North.
Have you relocated your seat?
I stand to second the motion that the joint recommendation on the 2016 budget estimate revised version of the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation NTDC by the Senate and House Committees on Culture and Tourism be considered. I so second.
Thanks. Those in support, I will take this report, say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Senator Matthew Origide can proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me say again, I'm Senator Matthew Origide. I represent Edo South Senatorial District, Edo State, and I'm the Chairman, Senate Committee on Culture and Tourism. Chairman, I stand to present the revised budget estimate of the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation of 2016. And I want to say that this is a joint report, being the harmonized position between the Senate and the House of Representatives, both committees on culture and tourism. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, to be recalled, the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria at its sitting on Thursday, 21st July 2016, considered the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on revised version of 2016 budget estimates of the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation, NTDC, and refers same to the Senate Committee on Culture and Tourism for further legislative actions. The Committees of Culture and Tourism of the Senate and its counterparts in the House of Representatives met and harmonized their reports for presentation to their respective chambers. Consequently, the Senate Committee on Culture and Tourism invited the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture and the Director General of the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation, NTDC, to appear before it for the defense. Presentation by the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture. The Honorable Minister informed the meeting that the revised budget estimate 2016 for the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation, NTDC, was sent in error. He stated that the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation, NTDC, budget proposal for 2016 had earlier followed due process of the appropriation at the National Assembly through the Committees on Culture and Tourism of the two chambers and passed into law on the assent of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, and its implementation has reached a high level. When the Minister was asked to intimate the committee on the circumstances surrounding the presentation
of 2016 revised budget estimate for NTDC expenditures, he said that considering the fact that it was not presented as either a vehement or a supplementary budget, clearly indicated that it was sent in error. He then assured the committee that he will follow up the matter through the appropriate channels and ensure its withdrawal from the National Assembly. Observations. The committees made the following observations. 1. That the presentation of the 2016 Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation NTDC budget estimate revised sent to the National Assembly was done in error. 2. That the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation NTDC 2016 budget was passed by the National Assembly and assented to by Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief, and is presently being implemented. The recommendation of the committee, number 1, that the minister should facilitate the withdrawal of the 2016 NTDC budget estimate revised by Mr. President. 2, that the National Assembly should discontinue the consideration of the 2016 budget estimate revised version of the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation NTDC, since the budget for the agency had earlier been appropriated and passed. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the committee wishes to express its gratitude for this privilege to serve. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, distinguished colleagues. I think this is a very straightforward report, so I'll simply put the question. Dear colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do approve the report on the 2016 budget of the Nigerian Tourism Development Corporation, say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you, Senator Rogide. Senate Leader. So the report is accordingly approved. Sorry, Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues. The third order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Information and National Orientation on the 2016 budget of the following agencies. 1. National Broadcasting Commission. B. News Agency of Nigeria. C. Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria. And D. Nigerian Television Authority. Distinguished senators will recall that the reports were laid yesterday, the 23rd day of November 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Suleiman Adokwe to move the motion for the Senate to consider and approve the report. Mr. Adokwe, where is the report? Because it's not been circulated. Oh, okay.
Can I go ahead? Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Suleiman Adokwe, representing Nasarawa South. I move that the Senate do consider the reports of the Committee on Information and National Orientation on the 2016 budget of the following agencies: A. National Broadcasting Commission, B. News Agency of Nigeria, C. Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, and D. Nigerian Television Authority. I so move.
All right, Senator Walker. Can you second the motion, please?
Mr. President, Senator Folke Emmanuel is my name, Bayelsa Central. I rise to second the motion ably moved by my colleague. I so second.
Thank you, dear colleagues. Those in support that the Senate do now consider the budget of the National Broadcasting Commission, News Agency of Nigeria, Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, and Nigerian Television Authority, say aye. Those against, say nay. Ayes have it. Mr. Adokwe, I'm sure you'll be able to present the summary. Okay.
Distinguished colleagues, the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, at its sitting on Thursday, 21st July 2016, considered the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federation, on the budget of the underlisted agencies: National Broadcasting Commission, News Agency of Nigeria, Federal Radio Corporation, and the Nigerian Television Authority, and referred same to the Committee on Information and National Orientation for further legislative actions. My colleagues will note that this is in compliance with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, and the committee immediately invited the concerned agencies with a view to reviewing their internal generated revenue and making recommendations for appropriation to augment whatever was done in the earlier submissions. It is in that regard that the following recommendations were made. A total sum of 1,922,919,000 naira only was recommended for National Broadcasting Commission to make up for the expected shortfall in the provisions of the 2016 Appropriation Act. Secondly, a total sum of 132,550,000 naira only is recommended for News Agency of Nigeria to make up for the expected shortfall in the provisions of 2016 Appropriation Act. Thirdly, a total sum of 2,342,251,002 naira 5 kobo only is recommended for Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria to make up for the expected shortfall in provisions of 2016 Appropriation Act. And finally, a total sum of 5 billion naira only is recommended for Nigerian Television Authority to make up for the expected shortfall in the provisions of 2016 Appropriation Act. Details of projects and expenditure for all the agencies from the 2016 internally generated revenue in the are hereby attached. We want to thank the Senate President and my dear colleagues for we appreciate the opportunity given to us to serve. All the members signed, and when I laid it, the original copy laid was signed by all, and they are here to speak for themselves. Those whose signatures are not here. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
All right, we believe you. Thank you so much. Distinguished colleagues, again, this is straightforward. I'll go straight to putting the questions. Those in favor that the Senate do approve the report on the 2016 budget of the National Broadcasting Commission, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the Senate do approve the report on the 2016 budget of the News Agency of Nigeria, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do now approve the report on the 2016 budget of the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. And finally, dear colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do not approve the report on the 2016 budget of the Nigerian Television Authority, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The budgets of the National Broadcasting Commission, News Agency of Nigeria, Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, Nigerian Television Authority for 2016 is hereby approved. Senate Leader.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the fourth order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Environment on the 2016 budget of the National Environmental Standards and Regulatory Enforcement Agency. Distinguished senators will record that the report was laid on Wednesday, the 23rd day of November 2016. Distinguished senators, Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Dr. Oluremi Tinubu to move the motion for the Senate to consider and approve the report.
Senator Tinubu.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Oluremi Tinubu, representing Lagos Central Senatorial District. I rise to move the motion that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Environment on the 2016 budget of the National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency. I so move.
Senator Shitu.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise to second the motion ably moved by distinguished Senator Oluremi that the Senate do consider the report as presented.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, those in support of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Tinubu.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you don't mind, I know we have a lot of reports. I'm going to skip the introduction, the background, and I'll start from methodology. Is that all right, Mr. President? Thank you.
Very well. Go ahead.
And the methodology. In order to carry out this assignment, the committee, after due consideration of documents submitted by the agency, resolved to invite the Director of NESTRIA to defend the budget, the proposed IGR budget. The session was attended by the DG and other key officials. This is the summary of the 2016 budget performance. From January 2016 to October 2016, we have the personnel, overhead, and capital total allocation, which all my colleagues have in front of them. I'll go to internally generated revenue, the IGR. The National Environmental Standard and Regulations Enforcement Agency has projected to collect the sum of 499,645,340 naira and 22 kobo as revenue by the end of the year 2016 through various sources, including non-compliance fee, administration fee, laboratory analysis fees, sales of national regulation and audit guidelines, air quality, waste and toxic substance permit, etc., which is in the Appendix 1. The expenditure of the agency in defending its 2016 IGR presented an estimated amount of 372,944 naira only as their proposed expenditure out of the projected IGR budget, which was indicated. Our recommendations. The committee hereby recommends that the projected revenue of 499,664,340 naira 22 kobo be approved for NESTRA in 2016 financial year. 2. The sum of 372,944,000 naira only for the augmentation of the agency's overhead cost in 2016 appropriation be approved for NESTRA. Conclusion. The committee is indeed thankful to the leadership of the Senate for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dear colleagues, again, this is straightforward. I'll go ahead and put the question. Those in favor that the Senate do approve the report on the 2016 budget of the National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency, NESRA. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The report is hereby approved. State Leader.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the fifth order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Education, Basic, Secondary, and 2016 budget of the National Business and Technical Education Board. Distinguished senators will recall that the report was laid on Wednesday, the 23rd day of November 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Dr. Aliyu Wamako to move the motion for the Senate to consider and approve the report.
The former governor of Sokoto State, distinguished Senator Aliyu Wamako.
It's not coming. Mr. President, my respected colleagues, I am Aliyu M. Wamaku, representing Sokoto Central District of Sokoto State. I rise to move that the Senate do consider the report on the Committee on Education, Basic and Secondary on the 2016 budget of National Business and Technical Education Board, NAPTEP. I so move, Mr. President.
All right, Senator Babakaka. Can I second the motion?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Babakaka Bashir Garbay. I represent Borno Central Senatorial District. I rise to second the motion ably moved by Senator Ali Wamoko that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Education, Basic and Secondary on the 2016 budget of the National Business and Technical Education Board. I so second.
Those in favor of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Wamako.
That is a moving amendment.
Sorry. Mr. President, my dear colleagues, this report on National Business and Technical Education Board, NAPTEP, as earlier indicated in the report, I want to keep the introduction and just move to methodology. Mr. President, with your kind permission, the committee met on Tuesday, 27 September 2016.
Can you go to page 3, consideration of the NAPTEP budget? Page 3, please. Your microphone.
The committee observed that NAPTEP submitted the same budget proposals during 2016 budget defense by ministries, departments, and agencies, MDS, before the National Assembly, and total sum of 1,246,661 naira 157 kobo, made up of 1,066,747 naira 271 naira personnel cost, 73,763,828 as overhead cost, and 106,049,850 as capital cost was appropriated to the board in 2016 Appropriation Act. NAPTEP is the one of the agencies under Federal Ministry of Education not listed in the schedule of the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2007. 4.3. 2016 budget proposal of NAPTEP was erroneously submitted for the second time, as it has been accommodated in the 2016 Appropriation Act, as summarized here under. Subject: personnel cost 2016 budget 1,066,747,477 naira. Since is provided in the Act 2016 Appropriation Act. Overhead 81,848,798. Appropriation Act 73,763,822 naira. Capital cost 134,665,281 naira. Appropriated 106,049,852,000. Total proposal 1,273,251,456 naira. Appropriation Act 1,248,461,157 naira. Recommendation: the committee recommends that the Senate do consider and approve that the budgetary allocation in the total sum of 1,248,461,157 naira, made up of 1,006,747 naira, 1,471 naira personnel cost, 73,663,828 as overhead cost, and 106,049,000 as capital cost for National Business and Technical Education Board in 2016 Appropriation Act be sustained. To this end, Mr. President, I wish to appreciate, to thank this Senate for giving us the opportunity to serve in this capacity. I so submit.
All right, thank you so much. Dear colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do approve the report on the 2016 budget of the National Business and Technical Education Board, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The report is hereby approved. State Leader.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the sixth order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Capital Market on the 2016 budget of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Distinguished senators will record that the report was laid on Wednesday, the 23rd day of November 2016. And Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Isiaka Adeleke to move the motion for the Senate to consider and approve the report.
Adeleke is not here. Okay, stand it down.
May I now move that we stand down the sixth order of the day to another legislative day? I so move.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, may I second the motion that we stand down this order to the next legislative day?
Those in support that I will stand down this particular item till another legislative day, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Say Leader.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the seventh order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Science and Technology on the 2016 budget of the agencies. A, National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure. B, Raw Materials Research and Development Council. Distinguished senators will record that the reports were laid on Wednesday, the 23rd day of November 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Dr. Ajayi Boniface to move the motion for the Senate to consider and approve the report.
Senator Professor Ajayi Boniface.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Robert Ajayi Boniface, Senator representing Ondo North Senatorial District. I rise to move that the Senate do consider the reports of the Committee on Science and Technology on the 2016 budget as the following agency, just one of them, the Raw Material Research and Development Council. I so move.
So that one is not ready. The first one is not ready. Say that again. You have them here? You have the two reports.
Actually had been considered in the normal budget. So it was an error to have brought them back to us.
Okay. Senator Kume, can you second his motion?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Senator George Akume, Benue Northwest. Mr. President, I rise to second the motion moved by Senator Ajayi Boniface of Ondo North, who just concluded the election here now, that the Senate will consider the reports of the Committee on Science and Technology on the 2016 budget of the Raw Material Research and Development Council. I so second, Mr. President.
Very well, thank you, and welcome back. Those in support of this motion that the Senate do not consider the 2016 budget report of the Raw Material Research and Development Council, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Boniface.
Thank you, Mr. President. Like my other colleagues, I will be very brief in presenting this report. But it's very important for me, Mr. President, to, as a background information, highlight the mandate of the raw material. The mandate is to promote, support, and expedite industrial input and self-reliance through optimal utilization of local materials as inputs to the nation's industry. Section 21 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act mandates the Council to collect 1% of the 7% of import surcharge on raw materials imported as the main revenue source of its operations. Mr. President, for the 2016 budget, the revenue accruing to this council based on the 1% import surcharge is 5,415,949,856 naira. The internally generated revenue is 37,930,231 naira 84 kobo, for a total of 5,453,881,087 naira 84 kobo. The expenditure, Mr. President, the personnel cost is 1,475,394,916 naira, and the overhead is 1,300,843,934 naira. The capital projects 2,547,711,006 naira. The total is 5,419,949,856 naira. The surplus of income over expenditure from revenue is 39,930,231 naira 84 kobo. Mr. President, based on this, my committee moves that this budget be approved.
All right. Thank you so much. Just one quick observation. That out of the 5.4 billion that was made, they spent almost all the money, leaving a balance of just 39 million as the operating surplus. That's it. That's the operating surplus. They need to improve on this. Please. We need more money to run this country. They can't spend all the money they earn and expect this country to move forward. Thank you. Dear colleagues, those in favor that the Senate will approve the report on the 2016 budget of the Raw Material Research and Development Council, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The report is hereby approved. Senate Leader.
Mr. President, in order to make the order paper clearer, can I now apply that the 8th, 11th, and 12th order of the day be stood down to another legislative day? I so move.
This person is
Okay, go ahead. Take 8. The F is ready.
I look in the chamber and you are not around. It will be unfair for me to call your this thing. Yes. The 8th order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Health on the 2016 budget of the National Agency for Food and Administration and Control. The distinguished senator will record that the report was laid on Wednesday, the 23rd day of November 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Lanre Joshua to move the motion for the Senate to consider and approve the report.
Senator Matthew Orogide.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I hereby move that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Health on the 2016 budget of the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDA. I so move.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Sam Anyanwu. I represent Imo East. I rise to second the motion ably moved by Senator Orogide that the Senate do consider the report of Committee on Health on the 2016 budget of the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC. I so second.
Thank you. Those in support of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Matthew, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, once again, I'm Senator Matthew Orogide, the Vice Chairman, Senate Committee on Health. Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I forward here with the harmonized report of the year 2016 budget of the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, for your kind consideration and approval. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, you will recall that the Senate received the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the 2016 budget of the 38 government agencies to corporations, including NAFDAC, on 21st July 2016. After the consideration of the request by the Senate, it was referred to the Committee on Health through the Office of the Clerk on the 25th of July 2016 for further legislative action. Accordingly, the Joint Committee invited the Acting Director General of NAFDAC and her management team to appear before it to defend the proposal. Thereafter, the Joint Committee considered the proposal and hereby submits recommendation to the Senate for approval. The highlights of the 2016 revenue projection and expenditure.
Can you go to page 4? That's paragraph 3.0.
That the projected IGRO collection of the agency is expected to increase in 2016 collection index, thereby increasing the cost of expenditure items. 3, that the total personnel cost of the agency is not included in this proposal because it was captured in the approved 2016 federal government budget. 4, that the overhead cost provision in the proposal, in addition to what was granted the agency in the approved 2016 federal government budget, in the sum of 7,207,650 naira. And 5, that the capital expenditure proposal include new and ongoing projects meant to be executed in the 2016 financial year. The capital cost provision in this proposal is in addition to what was granted the agency in the approved 2016 federal government budget in the sum of 14,364,000 naira. Recommendation. The committee made the following recommendation. 1, the projected revenue of 10,612,781,461 naira be approved for NAFDAC in the financial year, in 2016 financial year. 2,
that the total overhead cost of 6,906,795,811 naira only also be approved for NAFDAC. That the total capital expenditure of 3,727,507,300 naira also be approved for NAFDAC. That the total budget of 10,634,353,111 be approved for NAFDAC in 2016. Conclusion, the committee wishes to thank the Senate, the entire leadership of the Senate, and all our distinguished colleagues for this opportunity given us to serve. It is our hope that the recommendation will be considered and approved, considering the fact that a healthy nation is a wealthy nation, and as a nation we must do all within our capacity to stop unnecessary debts of our citizens. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Selma Adiola.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleague, Adiola Solomon Olamilekon, representing Lagos West. Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I have listened with rapt attention and I have watched with keen interest how we have been passing the budget of these various parastatals of the government. But Mr. President, I want us to take a cue from one fundamental issue that was raised by your very humble self when we are considering the Nigerian Raw Materials and Institute budgets. You were able to draw a very important observation concerning the operating surplus. And that was made possible because there is basis for comparison. You had their 2015 budgets side by side with 2016 budgets. And when you look through the budget, you find out that the operating surplus remitted by the Nigerian Raw Material Institute was relatively low, and you make this complaint. Aside these particular agencies' budgets, all other agencies of the government have been silent on the performance of their 2015 budgets. And I could vividly recollect when Senator Dino Malaye presented the FCT budget on the floor of the Senate. One of the fundamental issues that was raised was, where is the 2015 budget? So all these agencies are silent on their 2015 budget performance. So what we are simply doing here is we are just eating and abetting indirectly. Because if we will not know the true position. I take, for instance, the National Broadcasting Corporation budget. They promised to remit 660 million as the operating surplus for the year. The question is, how much was remitted in 2015? This budget we are considering, you noticed that only 20 million naira was provided for in the federal government budget. Between you and I, what is 20 million to NAFDAC? They were silent on the breakdown of what make up this 14 million for their overhead and 7 million for their personnel. It can't even pay their salary for 1 month. Likewise, this overhead expenses. And the total budget reported by NAFDAC is about 10 billion naira. For 2016, nothing on 2015. And don't forget, when the Federal Ministry of Finance was looking for money under this operating surplus, NAFDAC is one of the biggest contributors. So if we are looking at this budget in this using this process, I think we will not be doing a thorough job on the budget of all these agencies. So I want to commend the Science and Tech Chairman, who could give us the detailed analysis of his activities of this agency in 2015 vis-a-vis that of 2016. And if you look, all other agencies, they've been silent on it. And it will not help us, it will not give us details into the activities of these agencies using this methodology. That's my observation, sir.
All right, thank you so much. Well, distinguished colleagues, the observation has been well noted, but I think this is the first time we are receiving the budget of all the other agencies. So I think something we need to commend. So, and they were all sent to our respective committees so that they have enough time to interrogate them. But because we are running out of time, because 2016 is almost over, I'm sure some of these things were overlooked. But I think going forward in 2017, we expect that this budget of the various agencies should arrive here early enough for us to have proper scrutiny, ask proper questions, so that the proper conclusions will be arrived at. So having said this, I think this will be a lesson to all the respective committees in dealing with the budget of the MDAs. So I would therefore ask that we just go straight to the question and then see what their view will be. So those in favor that the Senate do approve the report on the 2016 budget of the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The budget is hereby approved. Senate Leader.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the ninth order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Interior on the 2016 budget of the Nigerian Immigration Service. Distinguished senators will record that the report was laid on Wednesday, the 23rd day of November 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Bayero Nafada, former Deputy Speaker, to move the motion for the Senate to consider and approve the report.
Your Excellency, Alhaji Nafada, and Co-Chairman,
thank you very much, Mr. President, and Leader, former Chairman of Judiciary in the House. Mr. President, may I move that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Interior on the 2016 budget of Nigerian Immigration Services. I so move, Mr. President.
Sir Dino.
Dino Katishi.
Mr. President, my colleagues, my name is Dino Melaye, Kogi West Senatorial District. I rise to second the motion as moved by the performing chairman of Interior.
Yeah, but your performing chairman did not sign the report. Well, those who support that Senate do consider this report, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Nafada, you can proceed. But see if you can summarize it.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, the report I have here has been signed by me. Maybe the one given to you as...
Made in Aba?
No, it's not made in Aba. Thank you, Mr. President. Like you said, I will try to summarize everything. The Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, in its sitting on Thursday, 21st July 2016, considered the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces of the Federation on 2016 budget of the Nigerian Immigration. I referred the budget to the Committee on Interior. Mr. President, we have invited the service and they have defended the budget before us, but we have this as the formula of sharing the revenue of the service, Mr. President, on page 2. The sharing formula of the revenue generated from the project, from the project is as follows. Federal government 45%, Nigerian Immigration Service 7%, Ministry of Interior 1%. No, wait now, this chairman of, you will do your own. I am addressing this chair, not you. Mr. President, I am on page 2. The sharing formula for the revenue is as follows. Federal government 45%, Nigerian immigration 7%, Ministry of Interior 1%, the private partners 47%. It can be seen as below, Mr. President. This is the total revenue. Chairman INEC. The summary of the revenue, local revenue, is as
State Leader.
Thank you.
He has not handed over.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I just want, by way of comment, the chairman, former DS, has raised a very pertinent issue. And I don't think it is enough for us to just pass it by way of comment. I think this is the time to act, and the time is now. And that is, we should do something, or agree on something. There should be an action. Because as he said, what is happening is that most of these
departments and agencies that generate revenue, instead of using the established system of even executing their mandate or responsibility, they go into all sorts of hiring of consultants and agreements like this one. What is wrong with immigration training itself, acquiring, so that they are the people that will specialize in that department and run that department for that matter? Instead of, as he said, that you hire a consultant to generate 45 billion, for example, as an income, and end up paying consultants 30 billion, and you discover, or 35 as he said, and you discover that the consultant or the so-called consultant has an office somewhere with maybe less than 10 staff running 30 billion project, instead of allowing the immigration itself to, for example, employ Nigerians, young Nigerians that can do this job and can improve on the system every time. So I'm moving, or I don't know, suggesting that right now we should do something and mandate the committee to now set machinery in motion to check this thing right away, but so that by next time, or even as at now, the issue of the consultant will be resolved. What is happening, Mr. President, is that they acquire hardware, computer hardware. If you compare, if you acquire this hardware, it's a one-stop payment. Once they pay, they acquire the hardware. Mostly the service providers that are normally international will always be updating the software for you based on the initial purchase agreement. So what I'm saying is that there's no even cost implication in it. Once you have a computer, you put it, some of these computers run on their own. All you do is to check. Like you give somebody the computer, set it up. It is the same immigration people that will be paid 20,000, 30,000 per month that will be feeding the computer and producing the so-called e-passport. So we should do something right now.
The board office.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy that the Senate leader commented on this issue of new work and negist. I'm really upset that so much money is being paid to these two companies. Yeah, it's on, sir. I'm upset that so much money is being paid to these two companies. I wonder what type of solution that they are providing. Is it the hardware? Is it the software? And apart from upgrading the software annually, the hardware is there. And in fact, it's not in all cases that you upgrade the software. To me, this is, I don't want to use a very bad language. It looks to me fraudulent to be paid as much as 47% of revenue to two companies. What are they doing? I know Negis. Negis is an offshoot of NIDA. So I think I agree that this thing should be reviewed immediately in the interest of this country. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right. Well, distinguished colleagues, I think the point has been made. I would like to thank the
Yeah, Mr. President, I just want to inform the Senate that most of these agreements were signed by the ministry without even the knowledge of the service. Some of the items that were signed were signed. They can do them in-house, but it was signed by the ministry. They don't know about it. They would only be given the letters that there are an agreement between the ministry and so consultant. And they can do it in-house, even without that.
Okay, so Nala.
Thank you very much, Mr. I think my opinion is that we must not restrict this approach to the Ministry of Interior. We must admit the fact that what exists is a platform for official thievery. And we should now constitute a committee to look into all these things at cutting across board. Wherever these consultancy issues are being signed, we must intervene. Let us not restrict ourselves to Internal Affairs Committee. We must
do a thorough job. If we can afford that situation before, we can no more afford it now. Yes. Therefore, we must look at this and then come out with a platform from which everything can be remedied at once. That's my opinion, sir.
No, remember that I think 2 weeks ago we set up a committee to review the operating surpluses of various agencies. I'm sure it should be part of their mandate. Yeah, so I think we should leave it at that. But for this one, I would like to join the committee to look into the relationship between the immigration and the Minister of Interior regarding some of these contracts and consultancy, and then ensure that you have all the correct information and streamline them for efficiency, so that be sure that you can absolutely control. That's the essence of checks and balances enshrined in Section 88 of our Constitution. So use their oversight function to get at the root of this matter, find out the details of this agreement and see if they can be reviewed, and then ensure that the remittances are actually made to agencies that are relevant to the earnings, so that it can have proper accounting of the earnings of the various MDAs in relation to the ministry. Yes, Leader.
I don't want to belabor the matter, but I want it to be reflected in the proposed and proceedings as a directive from you, Mr. Senate President, to the committee that they should investigate. I agree that there is a holistic thing that we have been doing, but this is a very specific matter, and it's a different and specific. I think that directive should come from you to the committee, so that it will be reflected in our votes and proceedings to enable the committee commence work and bring report on that matter.
So is it the wish of the Senate that this committee do now take the responsibility of investigating these consultancy services in immigration service? Is there a wish? Okay, those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So the committee is now given the mandate to look into those consultancy services and then ensure that we have the report as quickly as possible. All right, so on this note, I'll still put the question. Those in support that the Senate do not approve the report on the 2016 budget of the Nigerian Immigration Service, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senate Leader, the report is hereby approved anyway. Senate Leader.
Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues, the 10th order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Banking, Insurance, and other financial institutions on the 2016 budget of the following agencies: A, National Insurance Commission; B, Central Bank of Nigeria; C, Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation. Distinguished senators will recall that the reports were laid on Wednesday, the 23rd November 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Rafiu Adebayo, ably represented by Senator Anyang, to move the motion for the Senate to consider and approve the reports.
Senator Anyang.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Sam Anyang. I represent Imo East and Imo State. Mr. President, I move that the Senate do consider the reports of the Committee on Banking, Insurance, and other financial institutions on the budget, on the 2016 budget of the following agencies: A, National Insurance Commission; 2, B, Central Bank of Nigeria; and C, Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation. I so move.
Senator Hope Uzodinma, can you second the motion?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Senator Hope Uzodinma. I represent the people of Imo West. I rise to second that the motion ably moved by Senator Sam Anyang be accepted. I so second. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, those in support that the Senate do not consider the budget report of the National Insurance Commission, Central Bank of Nigeria, the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Anyang may proceed.
Mr. President, once again, my name is Senator Sam Anyang. I represent Imo East and Imo State. Mr. President, these three agencies, there was a collaboration with the House of Representatives on all the committees. So I will just go through. Let me not bore you with the introduction because of want of time. I'll start from item 1, then I'll go to the rest. It will recall that the Senate at its sitting on Thursday, 21st July 2016, considered the request of Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Federation on the 2016 budget of the National Insurance Commission and refers them to the Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions for further legislative action. If I go to item number 1.1, Section 23(1)(2) and 24 of the Act require the Commission to not later than 3 months prepare and submit to its board and the income and expenditure budget of the Commission, which will in turn be forwarded to the Minister charged with the responsibility for matters relating to insurance. However, the Fiscal Responsibility Act 27 requires that the budget be transmitted to the National Assembly for appropriation. The committee earlier met in Senate Conference Hall 022 with the House Committee on Insurance and the Insurance Commission on Thursday, 18th February 2016, deliberated and approved the Commission's budgetary estimates. The revenue projection, we have the gross revenue at 4 point. I don't know if I should bother you with this. I go for findings and observations. Since I already have there. If you have any observation, you can identify. The committee observed that the Commission's 2016 corporate budget is based on the following truths. 1. Stability in government monetary policies and other macroeconomic indices, such as monetary policy rates, interest rate, foreign exchange rate, and inflation rate. 2. To ensure greater collaboration and synergy with the sister financial services regulatory agencies. 2. To increase interdepartmental synergy and collaboration to reduce revenue leakages. 4. To facilitate immediate implementation of revenue audit on insurance institutions. And 5. Continuous enforcement of the MDBR care objectives for increased market deepening and insurance penetration. Based on this, after the deliberation, the committee recommended that the Senate do approve the attached recommendation in the sum of 7,246,244 naira only for the 2016 total expenditure budget of the National Insurance Corporation. The committee thanks Mr. President and colleagues for giving us the opportunity to serve. That's for the first.
Can take the second one.
The second one is the central bank. I will also not to bore you because we all met the same day with all the committees. Let me not bore you with that. I'll go to the findings of the committee. The Joint Committee found out that the 2016 budget of the Central Bank of Nigeria is hinged on the following assumptions. 1. Expectations and possible developments in the local and global economies, including the objectives and policy directions of the bank. 2. The dwindling revenue from oil resulting from lower oil price and reduced demand for Nigerian crude oil in the international market. 3. Rising demand for foreign exchange, which culminated in the reduction in accreditation to foreign reserves and projected income from foreign investments in the 2016 budget. 4. The bank's efforts in maintaining very tight monetary stance due to the low level Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC. Like I said earlier, Mr. President, the committee also met with the House committee, and then all agreed. And then we'll have to go to the committee element with the Committee on Insurance and Insurance Deposit Insurance Corporation on the same day. And our findings is that 1, the NDDC predicated its 2016 budget on the following assumptions. 1, that the official exchange rate might not be more than 215 naira to $1. 2, an average inflation rate estimated at 9.3% to 9.8%. 3, discount rate on treasury bills estimated at between 8.0% and 9.0%, as federal government bonds was expected to fall between 9.0 and 10.0 respectively. 4, an estimated financial assistance of 140 billion to the NDBs and 100 billion to the MFBs and the PMIs. 5, unexpected monetary policy rates, MPR of 12%. 6, the financial assistance to banks put at the interest rate of MPR plus 2%, that is 12% plus 2%, and the CBN oversight rate for standing lending facility expected at 40%. 7, an estimated deposit payout of 100 billion 678 naira provided for DMB and 16 billion 695 million for MFBs and PMIs to accommodate any closure and deposit payout to depositor of insured institution that may occur in 2016. 8, they need to comply with the Federal Ministry of Finance Directive on internally generated revenue, in which recurrent expenditure is expected to a maximum of 75% of total budget income for 2016. 9, the total sum of 26 billion 371 billion earmarked for capital expenditure, in which 89.92% is proposed for the execution of major capital projects, inclusive of purchase of land and other zonal projects. 10, the expected positive effects of the Treasury single account, which include timely payments and capturing of all revenues into the government treasury. This is the findings, and the Senate recommends that the Senate do approve the attached recommendation in the sum of 64 billion 952 naira 8 billion 844 987, being the 26th budget of the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation. Once again, the committee thanks Mr. President and his colleagues for giving the opportunity to serve. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Mr. Nevada.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, may I second the motion as moved by the acting chairman of Banking and Financial Institution, Senator Inyao, that this report be considered by this distinguished Senate. I so second.
All right, thank you. Distinguished colleagues, let's go straight to putting the question. Those in favor that the Senate do approve the report on the 2016 budget of the National Insurance Commission of Nigeria, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The report is hereby approved. Those in favor that the Senate do approve the report on the 2016 budget of the Central Bank of Nigeria, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The report is hereby approved. And finally, those in support that the Senate do approve the report on the 2016 budget of the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The report is also approved. Senate Leader.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the 11th order of the day is a consideration of the report of the Committee on Housing on the 2016 budget of the following agencies: Federal Housing Authority, Federal Mortgage Bank. Distinguished Senator will recall that the reports were laid on Wednesday, 23rd November 2016. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Barnabas Gemade, former chairman, to move the motion for the Senate to consider and approve the reports.
Former chairman of PDP.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Barnabas Gemade. I represent Benue North Senatorial District. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I stand to move that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Housing on the 2016 budget of the following agencies: Federal Housing Authority and the Federal Mortgage Bank. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Gobil, I second the motion.
Your Excellency, my name is Senator Ibrahim Gobil from Sokoto East. I second that the Senate do consider the reports of the Committee on Housing on 2016 budget of the following agencies: A, Federal Housing Authority, and B, Federal Mortgage Bank. I so second, Your Excellency.
Their colleagues don't support that the Senate do not consider this report, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Gamade. Can you do this in summary? Because I can see you have a very bulky report.
Thank you, Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues. I rise to present the report of the Committee on Lands, Housing and Urban Development on the 2016 budget of the Federal Housing Authority first, and then the Federal Mortgage Bank after. Going straight to the report of the Federal Housing Authority budget for 2016, I'd like to refer my colleagues to page 5, which is the observations the committee made on the presentation of the budget. In the course of carrying out this assignment, the committee made the following observations. 1, the Federal Housing Authority has not received budgetary allocation from the federal appropriation since 2003. This has seriously hampered the agency from discharging its overall mandate. 2, that the agency introduced a computerized program so that all projects could be embodied in the software with the aim of improving its record keeping and to also reduce and eliminate bottlenecks in the processing of clients' data. 3, that the authority is struggling to survive as a result of its inability to dispose of some of its completed estates across the country. 4, the authority had continued the payment of pensions to its retirees despite the federal government's directives for the takeover of pension payment under the old pension scheme since 2007, following its removal from budget allocations. And 5, the authority has many debtors, some of which include the following. 1, the federal government pensions refund, 1.2 billion, Federal Capital Territory Administration, unpaid Kado Estate houses of 120 billion, partnership judgment debt from SciTech of 410 million, 4, mortgage staff housing scheme program of 1.116 billion, and 5, mobilization fees outstanding to various contractors amounting to 334.4 million. Furthermore, Mr. President, the committee made the following recommendations. 1, the internally generated revenue projection of the agency for the year 2016 in the sum of 4,666,834,724.26 naira through various sources as stated in the submission be approved for the Federal Housing Authority in the 2016 financial year. 2, that the sum of 4,635,418,665.16 naira only projected as expenditure for the 2016 financial year be approved for the Federal Housing Authority. 3, that the Federal Housing Authority be reconsidered for immediate return to the budget with effect from 2017 appropriation to support social housing development for the low-income Nigerians. And 4, the agency has a large stock of unsold houses in various estates, resulting in huge holding costs. The Federal Housing Authority was encouraged to furnish the committee with the properties on ground so that the National Assembly can help them solicit clients to acquire them. We so recommend. In conclusion, Mr. President, the committee is indeed thankful to the leadership of the Senate for the opportunity to serve in this capacity.
I can take the second one.
Taking the report of the budget consideration for 2016 for Federal Mortgage Bank, I refer you also to page 8, which is the observations. In the course of carrying out this assignment, the committee made the following observations. One, that the performance of the past management of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria had exposed the bank to the kind of losses recorded in the report. Two, that the present management is taking the bull by the horn towards restoring the bank to the expected position of excellence, but still has a lot more to do in terms of restructuring the bank activities. Three, that the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria does not enjoy budgetary allocation from the Federal Government Appropriation Act. Four, the loan recovery process is very slow and more effort should be made towards aggressive loan recoveries and more income-generated activities so as to get back all trapped funds in both EDL and NHF, particularly in order to have more funds available in carrying out the core functions of the bank. Five, not all the states are participating in the National Housing Fund. Therefore, more effort should be put in ensuring that those states that do not remit National Housing Fund due to non-payment of salary to civil servants do so when they are bailed out from the meltdown they experience. Six, only 29 states and the Federal Capital Territory fully complied with the National Housing Fund Act. Aggressive National Housing Fund mobilization be encouraged to bring back all the 14 states and institutions with a view to enhancing cash inflow. Seven, presently most of the houses under Ministerial Pilot Housing Scheme, MPHS, are under construction. Developer holding such be impressed upon to complete the houses without further delay, and those completed houses be disposed to off-takers to guard against its becoming non-performing assets. 8, the contributors under the cooperative societies are not comfortable with the procedure and documentation of obtaining the loan, as such restrains them from regular monthly contribution. To restore this challenge, loans be disbursed to qualified informal sector beneficiaries so as to entice cooperators to the scheme. Mr. President, the committee made these following recommendations after due consideration. 1, the internally generated revenue IGR projection of the agency for the year 2016 in the sum of 19.93 billion through income as stated in the submission be approved for the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria in the 2016 financial year. 2, that the sum of 3.843 billion budgeted for capital expenditure and the sum of 7.622 billion budgeted for recurrent expenditure, giving a total of 11.47 billion, be approved for the agency for the 2016 financial year. 3, that a housing mortgage intervention fund of 500 billion be approved for the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria without delay in order to boost its performance. 4, the CBN should be made to honor the current outstanding 1.5 billion equity contribution obligation to the bank. 5, the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria to have its share capital increased to 500 billion as new capital level, as endorsed by the National Council of Housing at the 2016 meeting. In conclusion, Mr. President, the committee again is indeed thankful to the leadership of the Senate for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. Thank you.
All right, we'll go straight to the issue and then put the questions. Dear colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do approve their report on the 2016 budget of the Federal Housing Authority say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Those in favor that the Senate do approve the report on 2016 budget of the Federal Mortgage Bank, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Both reports are hereby approved. Senate Leader.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, I move that the remaining items on the order paper be stood down to another legislative day. I so move.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I second the motion that the remaining items be stood down till another legislative day. I so second.
Dear colleagues, those in support of the motion that we stand down the remaining items and that legislative day, say aye. Those are against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senate Leader.
Having happily concluded all the items on the order paper, I do move that this Senate do stand adjourned to Thursday, the 8th day of December 2016 at 10 a.m. prompt, and I so move.
All right. Those support that this Senate do not adjourn to tomorrow, the 8th day of December 2016 at 10 a.m. prompt, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senate is accordingly adjourned. Let me remind you, dear colleagues, that tomorrow we'll be taking the confirmation hearing of the chairman and other members of the EFCC tomorrow. So endeavor to come so that we'll be able to ask your questions. Senate is accordingly adjourned.